What's up, guys? Today we're going to be taking this cover off for a customer before we start service back this spring. Anytime we do a pool cover, I try and have two people with us that's putting one on and taking one off. Obviously, it's a lot of work for one person to try and manhandle this cover and get it off and do everything that needs to be done while cleaning the pool. So I got my guy Trey with me today. He'll help me kind of get the pool cleaned up, get this cover off, get it packed out. So first thing I'm going to do is take all of these loose, okay? And Trey's going to come back whenever we're done and put all these anchors down. So these anchors that are in the deck, they screw in and screw out with an Allen key. So we have an Allen key that will take those and screw them back down to the ground so they're flush with the deck so nobody trips over them. And then whenever we're using the cover, then we'll unscrew those out of the deck so that we can latch the springs and straps to those anchors. So I got all those loosened up. Now we're going to go ahead and pull it off. Now, this guy doesn't have a whole lot of room in his backyard. He's got a lot of trees and a lot of stuff in the way. Normally, I would just slide this all the way off into the yard, let it dry out, clean off any leaves and everything on it. But since we're limited on space, we're going to roll it up first and then put it onto the cart so we can kind of move it around to a different spot and be able to finish putting it up. So as we're pulling it out, this cover is this pool's big enough that it needs pillows, which are these blue balloons that are underneath the cover. That's one that Trey just threw out right there. I have one right here that's on my side. I'm about to take out. These are supposed to keep the cover from sagging down into the water whenever it gets heavy, whether it's from leaves or debris blowing on it or something else. We don't want that cover hanging down into the water. So those pillows are there to help prevent that, and we'll put those up with the cover itself. So basically, we're just having to kind of roll it into a burrito right now since we're really limited on space, and then we'll start folding it in on itself, make a small square, and pick it up together and put it onto the cart. Here's another one of those pillows right here. We'll go ahead and take out. As I was removing the cover, this cover has a metal wire, I guess. I've never really seen these on covers before, but apparently it was hanging down in the water and this cleaner just wrapped itself completely around it. This took me a minute to get untangled. But I do finally get it untangled and I'm leaving the cleaner in the pool right now. I'll empty out that bag here in just a little bit whenever I'm done doing the rest of my stuff. But I got that cable loose so we can go ahead and get this cover put back onto the cart. So while we're doing this, before I got there, Trey had already checked the chemical levels. So right now, in this area of Texas, we deal with a lot of high pH water. So obviously, there's not chlorine in the pool right now because the algae is using up all the chlorine that's in the water. But we also have kind of a high pH and high alkalinity. Now, the reason that this is important is because the higher your pH and alkalinity is, the less effective the chlorine that's in the water is. Okay, so if we have a high pH, my chlorine is less effective than if I have a lower pH. Now, lowering the pH for too long can be detrimental to the plaster. It can start wearing away at the grout and the plaster itself. So we don't leave that very low. The range you want to keep that in is right around a 7.4 to 7.6. But whenever I do treat pools that have algae in them, I will lower that down to like a 7.2. This gives me a little bit more effectiveness on my chlorine as I'm trying to kill this algae. Then once the algae is gone, I'll go ahead and bring that level back up. But for this area that we're in, honestly, it's a lot of high pH. So as we get fill water from evaporation and everything from the hose, that pH just goes right up through the roof again. So every week on these pools, we're usually adding acid to the water to lower that pH level. For algae, to get rid of algae, I'll usually raise the chlorine level up to about a 10 parts per million when normally you're keeping it somewhere between like a 1 and a 3 parts per million. Um, on this particular pool, it's got a lot of yellow algae in it. So yellow algae is different than green. Um, where it's basically chlorine resistant. So the amount of chlorine that we put in the pool, uh, if there is some green algae in there, it'll help kill it. It'll help sanitize and kill bacteria. However, the yellow algae will just not even really be affected by it. If anything, it's using up that chlorine until it's gone, and then it's just growing more. So the only way to get rid of this is to use an algicide. So today we're using a copper-based algicide called Super Green by Regal. So we'll be adding that here in just a little bit once I get the top of the water cleaned off. I always try and work the pool from top down. Now, since Trey's with me, he's using his leaf vac. We use Riptide leaf vacs for our company, um, but he's using that for the bottom of the pool to get the leaves and small twigs and stuff like that off the bottom while I'm netting the top. If I was by myself, I would net the top first, and then I would use my vacuum on the bottom. Anytime I've tried to do it the other way, as I'm vacuuming, it's causing this stuff that's on top to fall to the floor, and then I have to just vacuum again and net again. So it's honestly, if you're by yourself, you just want to net first and then vacuum after that. So once we get the top of the water clear, then we'll start brushing and getting this stuff loosened up off the walls and get that chemical added to the pool. Go and get this other pillow out of here and start draining the air out of it. These will get put up with the cover themselves so they don't get lost and they can be used for next season. So right now, Trey's gonna put some chemicals in as I start brushing. We got some tablets for prolonged chlorine, and then we'll add some shock and algicide to the pool. So you can see right there as I'm brushing all that algae being kicked up off the wall. Now we use a medium aggressive brush, so this is blue nylon bristles mixed with stainless steel bristles. If it wasn't coming off with this, I do have a full stainless steel brush. Now it's just way harder to brush with. Um, it's real stiff, so it takes a lot of effort to be able to brush with that one. So I do pull it out when I need to, but for right now, this one is getting that stuff loosened off just fine. So I'm just going to use this one. You can see Trey adding this blue liquid. This is our super green algicide, which is made for all different types of algae in the pool. Like I said, it's a copper-based algicide, so this will kill this yellow algae as opposed to just trying to shock it with chlorine. It probably will not go away, and if anything, it'll grow even stronger because that chlorine is going to get eaten up really quick. Now we're doing a bottle of this super green algicide. Now this is a pretty good sized pool. It's a dive pool, so it gets down to about 9+ feet in the deep end. Um, Normally, if there's just light visible algae, I believe that product says, I believe it's like 4 to 8 ounces per 10,000 gallons. This pool here is just shy of 30,000, probably between 25 and 28,000. So what we're doing is we're doing basically 1 quart of that, so it's about double the dose. But that's because of the heavy algae in the pool. And this stuff gets this real good. So my second visit, I mean, the pool looks great. So we really, I mean, that product has worked really well for us, especially this spring. Now, when you're brushing, I'm trying to hit everywhere in the pool. Anywhere you don't brush, that algae is going to stay. Now, sometimes even in the areas you do brush, it's thicker and it may not come off with the first brushing. That's why when I come back the next visit, I'll vacuum up any dead algae, I'll brush the pool again, and I'll retreat the pool. Normally, by the second visit, we don't have any issues. But if we do, then we'll retreat, vacuum, get out what we can, and then keep going. Usually that's for worse pools off than this. This one has, still the chemicals have been somewhat balanced. This algae has just got in because of everything that blows onto that cover. Ultimately, just sits there and sinks into the water. Even though that there is a cover on it, you're keeping a lot of that debris out of it, but most of the time, these covers underneath them, there is algae in the pool whenever we take them off, mainly because yellow algae likes that shade. So unfortunately, it kind of helps that yellow algae grow. But people get covers not to try and protect from algae. They get it to try and keep all these trees from dropping everything into the pool and just constantly having to get those out.
Instead of it just being a leaf vac, you're having to clean up all this bullshit.
Now Trey's using the stainless steel brush on that one, so he's kind of helping me try and get the tougher spots off. Now I'm gonna backwash this filter. The pressure is high, so with the pressure being high, I'm not getting good flow in the pool. So you can see right here, it's above, I didn't stay there very long, but it's above a 30 PSI on this filter. Now, that's a lot higher than what we'd want it. We'd like it to be closer to like 15, but every pool is different. So your pool may run at a 20 PSI, a 10 PSI, it just really depends. You can see all that dirtiness coming out when we're backwashing it. So when I backwash it, it's reversing the flow of water through my filter. This is a DE filter, so all that DE powder that's in there that collects all the dirt and debris and algae is coming out of this pipe. Now, I did this about 3 times, but I'll do it to backwash and then to filter until that pipe runs clear. Now, I just skipped forward on that, but what I did right there when you saw the water coming out, like I said, I'll do that about 3 different times. So to end this visit, we're recharging that filter with clean DE that just gets added directly through the filter. You can kind of see it dissolving into the skimmer, and that coats that filter with new powder. And this is day number 2, visit number 2. So this is about 2 days later after we did that treatment, and I'm coming back to check everything and go ahead and get it cleaned up. So first thing I'm doing is I'm just checking the chemical levels to see what I need to add once I get everything vacuumed and brushed up. So what I find here after I add my first reagents, I'm testing pH and chlorine right now. Chlorine's completely gone, even though we added a good amount that first day. And my pH is right about a 7.8, which is a little bit higher than what I wanted, but not crazy. Now, the test I'm doing right now is my alkalinity. So, alkalinity is how easy it is to balance my pH level. So, if my alkalinity is way off, my pH is not going to be easily maintained. So, after testing that, my alkalinity is a little bit above where I want it to be. We want to keep it around an 80 to 100. That one right there was at 130. So, I'm going to be adding a little bit of acid to the pool. The test that I'm doing right now is my stabilizer, my cyanuric acid level. Now, I'm only doing this because I couldn't remember what the level was this last time. Um, but in this one, we're adding our reagent to this bottle, shaking it up for about 30 seconds. This is sped up. And then I'm going to add it down the small tube of my tester. And then see there's a black dot in the bottom of it. I want to add it until I can't see that dot anymore. Now it came all the way up to the top and I could still barely see the dot, so it's at about a 10 on cyanuric acid right now, and I'd like to get it to about a 30 to a 50, so I'm going to add some more cyanuric acid to the pool. Cyanuric acid is important because if we do not have any in the pool, my chlorine is going to get eaten up by the sun's rays really quickly, like before it can really have a chance to get going. So I'm going to add that to the pool. Now, I'm vacuuming the pool right now, so I've never vacuumed this one, so the easiest way for me to find out which skimmer I'm going to go to is turning off the other skimmer and the main drain. And then you can see this skimmer is still circulating water inside of it. So I remove the basket, and then I'm going to take my vacuum hose after I get my cleaner out of the way, and I'm going to plug my vacuum hose into that skimmer. So I'm going to leave the cleaner up here near the top of the water. I'm going to go ahead and empty out the bag while I have it up there. This Polaris bag has 2 catches that hold debris, so I'm going to empty out both of those and then put it back on the cleaner. I'm just keeping it up close to the top of the water so I don't have to work around it when I'm vacuuming or anything like that, or tangle it up in its own hose. Go ahead and put that bag back on there. So now I'm going to go ahead and put my vacuum hose into the pool, and I'm going to walk that hose and plug it into that skimmer that I know is pulling water. we do is just put it right down into that suction line hole that's in the bottom. Now I just came and opened that valve back up because obviously there's a lot of air in my hose. I just put it into the pool. If I left that valve closed, my pump would lose prime. It would be extremely hard for it to gain it back. So I open up the other skimmer and the main drain. While that's priming itself back up, I'll go ahead and empty out this basket, and I'll empty out the basket on the opposite side of the pool. It does usually take about 2-3 minutes for it to pull all the air out of my hose, so I'm ready to vacuum. So that just gives me the perfect amount of time to go ahead and empty out these baskets while I wait. Once it's got pretty much all the air out of my hose, I'm going to go back to the equipment area, and I'm going to turn not all the way off, about 90%. I'm going to turn off to the other skimmer that I just emptied and the drain in the bottom. I don't want 100% of my suction going through my vacuum. I want about 90%. If I have 100%, I'll get it stuck to the bottom of the pool because it's got too much suction. So right there, I'm just testing my suction before I bring it up to this step and vacuum this dirt and dead algae. You can see I got plenty of suction on there right now. Because there's not a lot of debris in the bottom, I don't have to worry about it clogging my vacuum up. That's why we use that leaf vacuum on the first visit to get all that big stuff off, so I can just vacuum it on this second visit. And you can see there's a little bit of stuff right there in the corners and edges. That's some algae that didn't completely get brushed off the first time, probably because it was really stuck on there. So once I'm done vacuuming, I'm going to rebrush and re-add chemicals just to make sure all that stuff goes away. But you can see just how little bit of debris is in the pool after that first visit. So it only took us 2 visits to get this guy back to where it needs to be. And it was, I think, a Friday to a Monday, so only about 2-3 days for it to get back to looking good and being able to use. So this is sped up just to kind of save time, but I'm usually moving this pretty slow. I don't want to kick up a lot of dust. You can kind of see what happens there when I go too fast. If I'm kicking up dust, it's just going to settle right back down right after I go by it. So I'm trying to keep it as slow and controlled as I possibly can. If you have a lot of dirt in the pool, you really have to go slower because it's only picking up so much and you're kind of kicking up the rest and it just clouds the pool all up. So I am coming up the wall a little bit, but anything that doesn't want us to vacuum off, that's why I'm going to brush the pool again just to make sure everything gets loosened off the walls. Most of this stuff on the steps is dead algae and dirt that got blown in over the weekend. I try and be real careful when I pull it up onto the steps not to disturb a bunch of dirt. Like I said, if you kick it up, it just clouds up the pool. I got to be quick on this first step. This new hose that I have has an air leak right around the collar of that white piece that connects to my hose. Once I'm done in the pool area or I'm close to the spa, I'm going to go ahead and pop this vacuum into the spa itself. So anytime I do that is going to cause air to get in the line. So when I pull this up and drop it in, even though it was pretty quick, it's going to lose prime at the filter and I have to wait for that. So it takes about 2 minutes for it to prime back up. I just skip past that. There's an actual like part of a tree branch that's in there that I couldn't get out with my vacuum, so I'll get that out with my brush whenever I come back and brush this. Overall, spa is not too bad. Finish that one off, and then I'll go ahead and get this vacuum out of the pool so I can brush. So all I'm going to do now is just open those valves back up. Now that I've done vacuuming, anything I vacuum went to this pump basket right here, so I'm going to turn the pump off and then empty out this pump basket and put it back in, start it back up. This is a Hayward pump. It's got two knobs that hold this lid on, so I'll loosen up both of these knobs and just kind of pull them out of the way, and then that top glass piece will come off and I can get the basket. Not a ton of big stuff. Whenever I'm tapping this on the pipe, I'm not really hitting it very hard. I'm just trying to loosen up that little stuff out of the pump, clean the O-ring off with my hand, make sure there's nothing that's going to cause it to get air in it, and then lock it back down. Go ahead and turn it back on and let it prime itself back up. While it's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get everything else kind of picked back up and ready to go. Unplug my vacuum hose. Go ahead and get it all rolled up and then take this back to the truck and get the chemicals that I need for the pool. This is probably the hardest part of vacuuming. Like, that hose does not want to go that way, so I have to spin it in my hand as I'm throwing it down every single time. I do appreciate that they come with these straps when I buy them so that we can keep them all together and have a handle on them. Alright, so I'm going to get a couple of my chemical buckets and we're going to get these things that we need for the pool. The first thing I'm getting is my cyanuric acid and then chlorine and muriatic acid for the pool. So I'm going to do a few scoops of my cyanuric acid here to bring that up to about a 30 or 40. And then I need another bucket for my shock, so I'll go ahead and get that. So I use Cal Hypo Shock, so that's calcium hypochlorite that I'm using. There are two different types of shock. There's dichlor as well, but that also has stabilizer in it, so I don't use that because then I'd be doubling up on that. We use tablets in our pools too, which also have cyanuric, so that can really drive that up if you use that type of chlorine. Cal Hypo works great as long as you don't buy it from like Walmart or Costco or anything like that. You want to get all your chlorine products from a actual pool store. So I'm putting in about a quart of muriatic acid. That's what I had left in this bottle, which isn't much for this size pool. And then I'm going to put my cyanuric acid in. Now, there's a little bit more than what I'd normally put in one skimmer. So I put half of it in this skimmer and then the other half in my other skimmer. And once I do those cyanuric acid in the skimmers, then I'll go ahead and add my shock around the pool and then brush everything up. So cyanuric acid is really one of the only things that go in the skimmer. Pretty much everything else goes in the pool itself. You can see I'm putting that shock directly on those spots that I feel like still have a little bit of algae that needs to come loose. And then the rest of it I'm just going to put directly into the pool. So there's really just right here and on those steps that had anything kind of even left. And then the rest of it I'm going to put in the pool and brush up like normal. Always clean out my bucket as much as I can. I don't want any shock residual left in that bucket. And then we get to brushing. Like I said, I'm trying to hit every spot just so that anything that needs to be loosened off can be brushed and into the pool itself so it can be filtered out. Also, anytime you add shock to the pool, even if you're not trying to kill algae necessarily, it has to be brushed up. Now, this is a white plaster. Maybe it wouldn't make too big of a difference. I wouldn't know. I don't leave it on plaster no matter what color it is. But if you have a color plaster and you leave shock on the bottom, there's a good chance that it could bleach that area out. And it is chlorine. It bleaches all my clothes every time I get it on there. That light niche kind of set into the plaster, so that was a really prime place for algae growth. Make sure to hit that. Inside those skimmer throats, that's where I was just hitting right there. That's a common place for dead algae and stuff to kind of settle as it's going into the skimmer. So I always hit that as well. And once I brush everything up, then I'm gonna net with my fine net just to make sure all the little stuff is off. And then this pool is ready to go. This is where I had to get that little piece of wood out of the spa. I don't know how that even got in there, where it came from. I must have grandkids that play with stuff like that. I don't know how that got in there. And this is the big thing. Most pool companies, they're just kind of brushing off the steps and maybe brushing the walls, but you really do need to try and get in all the different angles that you can. Brushing is one of the most important things for your pool to keep it algae free. Now, it's not the only thing, and algae still can get in the pool, but if you're not brushing, you're just asking for algae in the pool. Last but not least, clean the top of the water, get all that little stuff off of there, and then this guy is ready to be swimmable. Now, anytime you shock the pool, you want to stay out of the water for about 2 to 3 hours. I usually tell people 3 hours. The shock just needs time to dissolve. If it's still floating in the water with the little small white specks, then if you get in the pool while it's like that, more than likely you're going to have itchy skin, burning, and things like that. It's a chemical reaction. Those things are still dissolving, so if they're dissolving on your skin, it's going to be painful. Being a pool guy, I wear pants and long sleeves most of the time, especially if I'm doing anything with pools. If I get any of that shock on me, even while just sweaty, it burns until I can get that washed off. So even if it says you can shock and swim, I always tell people to stay out for 3 hours. If you're not having to fight algae, then you can just use liquid chlorine. You don't have to wait to swim. If you're just trying to add some chlorine before a party or something like that, that's much more efficient way to be able to chlorinate the pool. Now, if I'm fighting algae, I'm not going to use liquid. I'm going to always use powdered chlorine, shock, cal hypo is what I like to use. The one that we buy is somewhere between like 60 and 70%. If you buy it from like a big box store, that's probably more like 40, maybe 50% if you're lucky. But more than likely, it's somewhere around like 30 or 40%, which is why you're not getting the results if you're buying brands from big box stores instead of from pool stores. But yeah, other than that, I mean, this pool looks great just after our second visit, and these people are ready to use it and have it ready for the summer. If you guys haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I got a lot more of these type of videos coming, also including plumbing and tips and tricks and different things, showing you how to vacuum, showing you how to do different troubleshooting things. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel and get notified whenever I drop new videos.